Welcome back to this episode of the Law of Relevancy podcast. Today, my guest is Dan Jones, who is the CEO of IT Resources located here in Tampa. With over 100 employees located worldwide, sourcing IT talent for companies all over the place. Dan, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it was so cool when I saw you a few months ago, and I was like, man, I recognize that guy's face. And you were like, yeah, you look familiar too. And then I realized that our kids played coach pitch baseball together. I mean, it must have been, my son's 16 years old now. I mean, he was like four years old, right? So that was like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of great times at the Little League field, the Little League park. A lot of fun.
That is a really good facility they have over there on that side of town. It seems like these days, and as someone who knows a lot about baseball, being a former professional baseball player, it seems like the way that kids are being brought up these days in some of these sports is just intense.
Yes, and it never ceases to amaze me how, you know, mom and dad's expectations might not always match their child's talent. In the most loving way that I can possibly say that.
As someone who wasn't gifted with all the talent in the world and had to work really hard at it, like I can totally get that, because like I can remember many times on the bench going, man, I just wish I could do physically what those other kids could do. And it's not easy, you know?
Yeah, it's, you know, I look back on all of it, and playing through high school and college, it was always, it just never seemed hard. It's just the way it was.
Yeah.
Bigger, faster, stronger. And as you move into the professional ranks, you play with people that are just super athletes.
Yeah.
And just, they're, you know, Hall of Famers, world champions.
Right.
All-stars. And they're just incredible, incredible athletes.
Now, you were a pitcher. That's got to be one of the most difficult positions on any field because of how much composure you have to have, the ability to not let the last pitch bother you.
And some people would argue that a starting pitcher is the best, you know, job in all of baseball, because you only work once every 5 days.
That's a good point. Yeah, and you do have control over what's going on quite a bit.
Yeah, I loved every minute of it.
Mm-hmm.
I look back on all of it very, very fondly. You know, wouldn't change it for the world. I'm just incredibly fortunate.
What's different about the way that kids are being brought up today than when you played and you were learning about the game?
Everybody's got a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, in our area here in Tampa, you know, the intellectual capital, the baseball IQ that's available is stunning to me.
Mm-hmm.
It, you know, I certainly remember a time when my boy was 12 and sitting at the you know, park ball championship, and there's a big leaguer and a half dozen guys that played in the minors and another 8 or 10 guys that played collegiate baseball. And to think that there's, you know, 75 or 85 dads in that, you know, 12U park ball league, and to have 15 or 20 of them that have played at least college baseball. It's crazy.
That is crazy, because if you look at the attrition rate from the kids that start baseball to the ones that actually make it to just, let's just say, the college level,
right?
It's like 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 10,000 can actually make it to that level. And to have that kind of concentration, I would hate to be a coach on that field.
And I've had that fortunate or unfortunate experience as well. So I spent all of 1 year in high school baseball, and that was enough.
Well, I remember you were a pretty good pitch coach. So I don't know if it makes you feel any better, but I certainly respected your skills back then. So the professional experience definitely translated well to that level.
You know, one of my fondest memories from that time is when I was out there, and, you know, at that age, you're just trying to throw the ball to make it hit a kid's bat. And I was throwing directly into the sun. and I threw a pitch and a kid struck out. And from the stands, some dad yelled, "Hey, Jones, that doesn't count towards your career stats." I thought it was fabulous. I was like, who is that? I'm looking right into the sun. I couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't count. It doesn't show up.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit. So I'm playing some sports myself. I mean, I remember that I failed a lot. And those lessons that I learned through playing sports, in my opinion, it's one of the greatest things you could ever do for your kids is put them in sports because they can fail, because they can succeed and experience all of those things and what teamwork's really about. How has that translated into your career?
Well, and I agree 100%. And I'll give you one from those coaching days really quickly that to me is, coaching high school baseball was a challenge, but one of the most rewarding moments from it all is when a dad got upset and came off the field or, as I was entering the field one day, decided he wanted to talk to me.
Yeah.
I was a pitching coach. His son was an infielder. I didn't coach his son. And round we went, and the infield coach had come over and expressed his thoughts about this gentleman's son and said directly to him that if it was up to him alone, he wouldn't have had his kid on the team. Like he would have cut his kid. And the dad kept arguing for his son's playing time, and around we went. And finally I said, "Dad, coach has told you more than once that he doesn't think your kid should be on the team. I'm going to say he's probably not going to play collegiate baseball. And the question I'll ask is, why are we even here?" And I said, "I'm here to teach him how to set goals and work hard to achieve them. Right. I'm here to teach him how to be a good teammate. Cheer for the kid next to him, ahead of him or behind him in the order, whether or not he likes the kid off the field. I'm here to teach him how to win or lose, be a good sport, and be able to shake the guy's hand in the other dugout at the end of the game. If we do or make progress in just any of those things, is that good enough?" And the dad looked at me, looked at the coach and said, "Thank you, I'm wasting your time." Shook our hands and walked away.
Man, that's tough.
It was, and it's hard to hear. As a parent, it's hard to hear that, you put all this time and effort from, 8 years old till high school to try and, push your kid to be best, and they're just not physical enough. They're 5'8" and they run a 7'8" and they throw the ball at 78 miles an hour and they hit the ball as hard as they can, and it's a routine fly ball to the outfield. And I'm sorry, but your kid's not going to play D1 baseball. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, I mean, just making it on the Sickles High School team is challenging enough. I mean, I remember the neighborhood that I lived in on that side of town at that time, there was a young man who was just phenomenal athlete. And I remember thinking, my God, like this kid is so skilled. You'd see him throw a curveball and he was like 8 years old and it just would hit the spot every single time. And I grew up being a baseball fan. My grandfather watched the Braves religiously. We lived in Georgia. And, when you said you were Pittsburgh, I remember thinking of Bobby Bonilla and Barry Bonds and all those guys.
Glory days.
Watched, those were the days when they were like head to head with the Braves all the time when Braves finally got good. But I asked my friend Jimmy about his son, and his name's Nick. And I remember thinking like, man, he's got to be, the number one starter on the team by now. He goes, "Oh, not at Sickles. It's really, really tough." And I think he will go play somewhere, but it's insane because the amount of time that family is dedicated to that game.
Oh, yeah. And
the travel and the coaching and everything. I mean, I'm surprised to see even kids like can make it through that and not get burned out, by the time they're in high school.
Yeah. And being around it as long as I was, I definitely saw dads do that to their kids, push too hard and push them away from the game.
Yeah.
And, it's sad. But it comes down to want. What's the kid want?
Right.
And it's actually been one of the things over the years that I've talked to my folks about was, as a 10-year-old, as a 12-year-old, as a 15-year-old, I always wanted I always wanted to go throw. I always wanted to go hit.
Right.
I always wanted to go compete. And to go back to where we started, it absolutely transcends
Right.
sports into business. It's really hard to be a great salesperson if you don't want to sell.
Yeah.
If you don't want,
Or if you don't believe in what you're there
Yes.
pushing, right?
yes, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about some of those lessons and how they've transcended. So adversity, how you deal with the adversity is like one of the most important things you could possibly understand. And like I was saying, like in sports, you get lots and lots of reps about diversity, right? So you founded the company that you run now with a partner.
Yeah, I did. And it was great. It was a great partnership. It was an absolute bootstrap. It was two guys and a couple phones and no capital, and off we went. And we got 4, 5, 6 years in, whatever it was, and and it turned into the classic partnership dispute, and ended up buying them out.
What advice would you give us if some of us are working through something like that? Like, what are some ways of like understanding the warning signs that maybe something's not going the right way?
Well, first things first, being a founder multiple times, first lessons, get yourself a payroll company and a CPA. I mean, especially around what we do in the staffing business, if we wouldn't have had, a Paychex or an ADP or somebody like that to handle those things, it's a nightmare. A CPA, thank goodness, that was always the thing we did. And the next thing behind that is if you're in with a partner, a partnership agreement.
Yeah.
You have to have a partnership, because when it's great, it's all great. We've all known the couple that was as happy as could be and ended up divorced.
Right.
And it's really the same thing. It was a really tough time. It was challenging. That's for sure.
No, that's good advice. Having founded a couple of companies myself, that is one of those things that you should make sure that you're factoring that in day one, because if your books aren't straight from day one and you don't have those fundamentals in place, like you'll never get to the point where you get to sell that company.
Yeah.
Or do anything with that in any kind of way that is probably the way you kind of dreamed of. You have to have certain things have to be perfect from day one.
Yeah, yes. I mean, there's a lot of fights in the world that I'll take on. Mm. The federal government is not on that list.
Yeah, they've got a few resources.
Yeah, I don't need to see the IRS.
So where are you headed now with your company? I mean, there's been a ton of changes in the IT world. I mean, cybersecurity is huge for our area.
Yes.
Right now. And what kind of jobs are you placing these days?
Yeah, it's really fascinating the way we've grown over the last few years, where really in our first, until about 2015, 2016, we were a 95% local company. And, the Tampa region is kind of the classic small, big market or big, small market.
Yeah, I think we're like 17 or 18th.
Yeah. However you want to say it, there's really not enough technology concentration up to that time where you can be only a cyber recruiter, only a development recruiter, only those. So all of the staffing agencies and technology are generalists. We're all generalists. Yeah. And while you might have a person or two in your organization that's, in the local market that specializes in that, it's really everybody's a generalist. And what happened about that time is we started growing and really placing people outside of the region. And COVID only made that go faster. Right. And so as it sits, today I think we have employees in 23 different states.
That's fantastic.
So it's crazy. It it brings people like Pete Zinabar from the council into play, where you're dealing with employment issues and things that you never thought you'd have to deal with, or understanding employment law in different states and things like that you never thought you'd have to deal with.
Yeah. So, well, one of the disruptive technologies that I've been paying very, very close attention to is ChatGPT.
Yes. Listen to some of that pod.
Oh my gosh. So have you asked it about code yet?
I have heard that There's somebody that I know inside of an organization who was asked to slow down their development because they were using Chat GPT and making the rest of the team look bad.
It's true. Not only will it actually write the code for you and all the comments, it'll tell you exactly how to implement it. And I've seen plugins to GitHub where if you connect your GitHub repository to your application, you can actually hit a button and it implements it. And so it's going to change the game when it comes to the coding resources out there, because I mean, it's doing a really, really good job. I mean, there's still, Terminator 3 hasn't happened yet, but it's close. It's really, really close. And I would imagine it's being highly disruptive in your field and probably like advancing a lot of people really quickly for the people that are using it.
It's some here, some there. I mean, company to company, everybody's so different in their adoption of that, where some people want to turn a blind eye to and ignore it. And they do so at their own peril, I think.
They really do.
It's something that, emerging technologies and new technologies and things that are innovative are things that we look at every day in what we do. There's no question in my mind that technology is going to disrupt the recruiting industry. It's just a matter of how and when. It's going to be hard to take the person out of the hire.
Right.
We're in the people business. It's hard to eliminate people from work.
That'll always be there. I think that'll always be there because you still have to get along with others. You still have to be able to, show leadership and teamwork and all of those things. When I look back through researching some of your background, one of the things I kept seeing over and over again was people who you had placed over the years. And one of the things that kind of stood out to me was this pattern of they were pointing out that you were placing them in the right spot for them. And what I thought that they were inferring was that you put them in a position where they could be successful. Maybe you recognize, just like the conversation you had on the outside of the diamond that night, you recognized where they were at and you matched them with the place that needed their level of talent at that time. That seems like an art to me. Is that something that just comes natural to you?
I haven't thought of it like that, actually, as being an art, but it's certainly something that we look at in detail when we start engaging customers. Mm-hmm. And I, like so many in any industry, I started my career working for somebody that's hundreds of times bigger than we are. The big name we're 50, 80, 100 offices all over the country, and we're the big shots and we know it all. What I found over time is that things get missed, things get ignored, and it so often turns into a transactional business. And so, to your point, you're exactly right, where we work hard to understand the customer, understand the group, who are the not only the culture of the company, but the culture of the group that we're placing somebody with. And at the end of the day, it creates better partnerships. It's about being a good partner and listening and trying to help everybody win, everybody involved. And I think so often as salespeople, we forget that. We just, so many people want to just make the sale, ring the bell, and move on.
Yeah.
And, I've been in the local market for 25 years now. Got a wife and 2 kids, and I'm not planning on going anywhere. I love it here.
Well, being somebody who also does sales a lot, I'm responsible for most of the sales that come through here. A lot of times there's like a mentality around it that isn't something that you normally associate with in sales, in my opinion, especially when it's consultative, which is what you do. It's what I do. And what I have to do, and I've grown this business incrementally, you've grown your business incrementally, and it's about one relationship and then growing it bigger, and then that person leaves but goes to a new place and knows that their partner Dan can help them out with finding whatever they need, and it just kind of grows and grows and grows. But to me, it all goes back to just like help. If you're just focused on that little transaction, that short-term thing, your only person you're helping is yourself in the short term, because ultimately you're going to end up with a lot of unhappy people. You need to be thinking about, like, what does that person actually need? They need somebody to stick there 2 years at least. They need somebody who's going to be, like, when you focus around all of your sales activities, like, what am I actually doing? Do you have the freedom to truly help these people or these organizations? Because if you do, then you're going to be successful if you think about it that way.
Right. And it's amazing to me. Like, one of the things we've seen grow is our Google reviews in the last few years, where, now there's more than a couple hundred of them out there. And it's one thing for somebody to, 5 stars, click, great. Oh, they're great. Love them. There's literally dozens of instances in those 200 where people have written multiple paragraph essays about how our people treated them, how they made them feel, how they, walked them through the interview and hiring process. And it's just, it makes me know that we're teaching our people how to be good partners to our customers, and that they're treating people the way that, not only the way we'd want to be treated, but listening well enough that they're treating people the way they want to be treated. Right. Which I think is a huge distinction.
So obviously that's part of your tool set that helps create repeatable results in terms of, like, bestowing that culture and that approach to placement. Are there any other tools out there that companies can use to help understand and evaluate talent that are pretty good?
Oh boy, this is one of those questions where I struggle with it terribly, because we start talking about testing, testing solutions,
assessments, personalities,
right? And can they be helpful? Sure. Are they a magic bullet? I don't know.
Nothing is.
Yeah. And to me, one of the funniest things to me that's happened over the years is we had a customer who asked us to give assessments, give developers assessments. And our salesperson, God bless him, he said, no problem. To make it truly valuable, what we really need to do is have some of your folks test.
That's true.
So we can have a baseline.
Or so that we understand if there's actually a fit.
So that we know that it's truly meaningful.
Exactly.
And the response was, you're fired. I don't want to do business with you.
That's crazy.
It's great. Thank goodness he told us up front how he was going to do business.
All right. Exactly.
I mean, I'm thankful for it.
It's like, hey, I'm just a transactional guy.
Yeah.
I don't care about results.
Yeah. I don't want to actually know. I don't want to actually have you tell me if my folks score a 24 or a 94.
No, that's really interesting. Like, going back to some of the assessments I've taken, I remember I took this one called, it was like a sales assessment. And seriously, like, I've always just approached it as like, hey, I'm just trying to be helpful, right? I scored like a 6 out of 100 on that test. And at the time I was doing that, I think I was like beating like everybody by like $200,000 in sales on the entire company. And I was like, man, this must be luck, But anyhow, I think it just truly goes back to just trying to be helpful, and trying to understand if there's a fit, because any one of these relationships, you have to evaluate whether or not it's a short-term or long-term relationship. And you always want to go for the long-term, because all of your short-term decisions will be the right ones.
Yeah. It's one of those things that over time, it's funny how it all washes out, and how some of the relationships and some of the things people say and do, it's so short-term.
Yeah.
So short-term. Yeah.
So what's next for your organization and for you?
Yeah. So probably the biggest thing for me in the last few years is started up a nursing division of the company, or it's actually a sister company, totally separate. So IT resources, it's the workhorse, it's the baby. It's whatever, 21, 22 years old now. Yeah. 22, maybe going on 23. And it's been fantastic. It's been phenomenal growth. It's been great. Wonderful people, wonderful results. And, we had customers who drug us into the nursing business and who asked us to help them with clinical roles. So it's, it's on the startup phase. We're, working hard to win some business on that side of it. So, it's keeping me busy.
Is it hard to learn about a whole new industry like that?
Absolutely. Absolutely challenging. Whole new set of lingo.
I would imagine the process is a little bit different too.
Definitely, definitely around medicine, there's, different set of credentials and credentialing and that side of it with, all the licensure that goes with it.
As well as medical systems, hierarchies.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just all of it is distinct. It's certainly created some ups and downs already.
Well, I'm sure it'll eventually do great. Because at the core of the formula is just be the right fit, put the right person in the right place, and it'll scale from there.
Yeah. I will give you one quick one that is still amazing to me after all my years in the business. It's been a little bit, and I'll certainly leave out the customer, but the story is, we had a nurse drug testing pre-employment. And she told us that she'd been out at a big party the week before and everybody was smoking. So she was probably going to come back positive for marijuana.
Sure.
So it wasn't the marijuana in her sample that surprised us. It was the fentanyl and opiates that were also in her system.
Right.
And that wasn't the troubling part. The troubling part was that the customer said, you know what? Don't worry about it. Just let her wait like 30 days and retest her. And if she passes, we'll go ahead and hire her on contract through.
Wow. They needed people that bad.
I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not like it. No.
Right.
No.
Right. This person's going to be right in the closet.
Clearly there's an issue here.
Yeah.
Clearly. So yeah, it's troubling. And that's the second, you nailed it. The other half of that is that's how desperate people are to get people hired, as if they'll consider hiring someone.
I'm surprised she didn't give you some like empathy story. Like, how am I supposed to know what it feels like when we give these people these drugs?
I don't want to know. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's terrible. Well,
crazy.
That is interesting. Anyhow, thank you for coming in. Where can we keep track of you, follow you, learn from you? Like, where are you?
So, definitely out on LinkedIn.
Yep.
As crazy as it sounds, Dan Jones, Tampa. I'll pop up pretty easily there.
JT.
Yeah. It, I have, definitely some archives in there with a lot of the fun things that have happened around the office. Yeah. And certainly the websites are rnapartners.com. And itresourcescorp.com for the IT resources side. So
we'll make sure to follow you there, and y'all can follow us anywhere where podcasts are found, on the Bake More Pies social feed, on the Law of Relevancy social feeds, and anywhere where podcasts are found. Thanks again for joining us, Dan. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time.